Hi, everyone. Good morning. So by way of welcoming you to the second day of field meeting, I'd like to share some thoughts about welcoming itself, about the idea of hospitality. I'm thinking of Derrida's little book of hospitality, which he wrote after a seminar in Paris in 1996. He was thinking through a small essay that Kant wrote just over 200 years earlier in 1795, an essay titled Perpetual Peace, a Philosophical Sketch. What Kant famously did in that essay was propose what it means to be cosmopolitan, meaning to be a citizen not just of one place, but a citizen of the world. And Kant writes that hospitality is, quote, not a question of philanthropy, but of right. Hospitality means the right of a stranger not to be treated as an enemy when he arrives on the soil of another, end quote. Obviously, nothing could be more relevant today. And if you look up the word hospitality in the dictionary, you'll find that it comes from the Latin word hostis and relates to two other words, hospice and hostia, which all bring an extraordinary range of words into English. Not only hospital, hospice, and hospitable, but also hostile, and therefore hostility. Not only host, but guest, and not only guest, but ghost. Which means that pulled into hospitality, we're torn between care, punishment, violence, generosity, giving, hostility, a haunting of ideas, and a haunting of ethics. And always, of course, the idea that the stranger who Kant wants us to welcome peacefully is an other that may, in fact, not be able to escape harm, not be able to avoid conflict. And that security, then, is double-edged, meaning people who keep you safe, but security forces that keep you out, that arrest you, imprison you, torture you, rape you, kill you. The ethics embedded in these words, beginning with hospitality, demand that just as it was 200 years ago, in fact, perhaps more than ever in a world overrun by technologies of surveillance, what it means to be the stranger, what it means to cross borders, is to cross between states of invention and invasion, in expressing our rights as citizens, and more so for all of you here today, our rights as expressive citizens, as remakers of the world, and the idea of border, of boundary, and that these are a limit concept that has to be re-examined in a violent world of nationalisms that constantly cross the border of ethics. What do we each understand of ourselves as the xenos, the Greek word for stranger, and which in English gives us xenophobia, the fear or hatred of foreigners? As the stranger, are we adventurer or refugee, tourist or victim, worker or guest worker, meaning exploited labor without rights? The figure of the visitor holds within it not only what's known, but what is not yet known. And in this potential is a hinge between expectation, expulsion, learning, discovery, and destruction. In a gathering like this, that welcomes strangers from across the political and cultural terrain of what's called Asia and what's called contemporary, words that are themselves contested, terms of border, continuum and discontinuity are both subjects of artistic production and political discourse. And I'd even extend that to the very act of selecting what's made, what's shown, what's cared for, as that in the broadest sense is what it means to curate. And as I'm your host today here at SVA, and I chair the master's program in curatorial practice, I'd like to welcome you. How we go forward in the world today as curators, and it's just as true for all cultural producers, is an increasingly urgent question of hostis and hospice, as well as hostia. How can we each be activists? How can we each think about resistance, sanctuary, and forms of advocacy at this time, in this place, and wherever you are, wherever you return to? In fact, this is what I'll be addressing. Does this work? Oh, now it's gone the other way. Well, at least I begin the technical difficulties of the day in welcoming you. There we go. This is what we'll be dealing with here in this theater on November 18 in an international summit on curatorial activism that we've organized. And so with all of that said, I'm happy to welcome all of you here this morning and in this theater to day 2 of field meeting, thanks to the amazing work of Leeza and her team. Enjoy the day.